I've received a lot of questions about animals and pets and how things work for them on frequency level. Like, do animals have distortions too? Do some animals process human distortion more than others? Are some animals more intuitive or higher in resonance than others? And what can they teach us? So today, I'll be answering some of your most frequently asked questions about pets and animals, what they can teach us, how they can help us, and why we love them so much. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part of this episode. The group frequency calibration at the end is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. My name is Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing frequencies and Fido, the dynamic between people and animals.
So what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about pets and animals because so many people have questions about them. And in fact, we have a number of people who've written in questions that they'd like to know about, just in terms of pets, animals, frequencies, spirit level, all that stuff. So today we're going to answer some frequently asked questions about pets and animals.
Yeah, that's a good topic because we never really mention pets, but they're very involved in this too. They're living beings with their own frequencies.
Yeah, and a lot of people, that's their family. You know, pets are part of people's families now.
Yeah.
So,
Some pets are their babies.
Yeah, exactly. Fur babies.
Yeah. Okay, so the first question we have is, pets, do they inherently have their own versions of frequency distortions the way humans do? Obviously, they're embodied, so they have distortions, but the negative ones that we humans are trying to clear, do they have those?
Yeah. So no, animals don't because they exist in the present moment. Okay, they're not like humans where we are scattered outside of the present moment. So meaning, like as humans, we can move our consciousness around, and and we also have minds. So our minds will spin us up and into all these different time distortions, time loops. You know, we think about and worry about the future. We can live in the past. So we're not very present in the moment often. We're worried about all kinds of things. So our minds do a lot of things which take us out of being in the present moment of linear time. Animals, anything in nature actually, animals, plants, rocks, whatever, anything in the natural world exists only in the present moment. They don't have the same ability, let's call it that, and or the same distortion that comes from being able to not be in the present moment. They're kind of locked in the present moment. So they don't have the same distortion as we do because they just exist. Now, they can take on our distortion, but it doesn't mean that when they pop into the world as like a little puppy or a little kitten or a little budgie or whatever that is that they are, that they have distortion because they come in and they're fully present in the moment. And they, like, again, don't have minds in the same way we do. So they can exist in that present moment and not have the same distortion. So they're very, very different. So they don't run distortion like we do.
So they don't have any at all?
When they
Or just not like our human ones?
Yeah, so their distortion usually becomes, the question you're asking could be something like, well, I have a dog that acts out, right? That's aggressive, that tends to chew on things, that whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of behavior is often when they absorb, first of all, human behavior. Okay, so meaning human distortion. So they can do that. So animals can take on human distortion. Dogs will do it a lot, actually, for their owners. So will cats too, but more dogs, actually. They also can, unfortunately, can be very abused by humans, right? So when we abuse animals, they, of course, shift, right? Because they have a memory. So it's not really a distortion, it's more like a memory, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're in response to that wounding, obviously, right? Because they've been traumatized by physical abuse or sometimes sexual abuse. It's really kind of gross what humans do sometimes to animals. But anyway, so they will have the wounding around that, but it's not, when they come in, they don't have like lineage distortion patterns. They don't have cultural distortion patterns or religious distortion. They don't have any of that.
No.
Now, if we do something horrible to them, or they're attacked by another dog or whatever, they may have a response to that and a memory to that. But do you understand what I'm saying? It's not the same kind of distortion that we have as a human.
Yep, very
it's different. It's really different.
Yeah. Thank you, that's clear.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question is, how common is it for pets to take on the distortions of their human pack?
Yeah,
You kind of just said.
it's pretty common, especially, it depends. Well, in the, let's call it in the Western world, okay, a lot of people will have pets as a replacement for kids in a way sometimes, or they'll treat them as children, okay? And they forget that the dog is a dog. Okay,
Especially
the dog
in Southern California. Sorry, I must say. Yes,
so
yes.
there's a lot of like fussing around fur babies, right? Because they replace, for a lot of people, children. And so they treat animals, these dogs or cats or whatever it is that they have, little mini pigs or whatever it is that they love and they have, as if they're children and as if they're human, but they're not human.
Right.
They're animals. So you'll notice that if you travel to other countries where they don't have that same dynamic with animals, the animals are more animal-like, okay? Like they just stay animals, right? They're just, you know what I mean? They behave like regular animals, but animals that have been pets in places where people project all this stuff onto them because they are baby replacements or partner replacements or whatever it is, friend replacement, whatever, then the animals tend to like suck up more of the human distortion. Now things are changing as consciousness rises because a lot of animals are, it's interesting, breaking free of that. They're like, I don't want to take any more of your distortion. Like, it's interesting. Some animals, just like some kids who are like new consciousness kids, they're like, you can't control me, right? Like I won't have it, right? And it doesn't need to necessarily be bratty, but it's like they have an ownership or an authority around their space. So animals are shifting too. Now, some animals are very controlled by humans, and so they're like within the control pattern of the human. So they'll kind of like absorb that and take on different patterns from their owners. Does that make sense? So they'll absorb like the distortion patterns of their owners. So yes, there are animals that will take on the distortion of their owners. Definitely, I've seen a lot of dogs will do it. Cats can too. But again, I don't know why dogs will do this. We have an interesting relationship with dogs, I think, as humans. And so they'll take things on, but they're starting to less, which is really, I think, wonderful, because I don't think they need to sacrifice themselves like that anymore, because it's not really their issue, it's a human's issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're just there as like punching bags.
Like sometimes,
emotional
yeah, or like sponges to take on the distortion that someone can't handle.
Do you ever notice some owners and pets start to look the same?
Yeah, it's kind of odd.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably part of it. Like they just kind of like...
Yeah, they merge and it's weird. Their fields start to merge. And it's kind of, it's not great actually for the animal nor for the owner.
Yeah.
It's just like intertwining with a partner.
Yeah,
it's codependency.
Yeah.
Right? Really, it's better if you're each separate individual beings and the animal is an animal.
Yeah,
you know?
and you're just sharing
and you're
love
just
together,
sharing,
whatever.
and you're sharing space together, and it's allowed to be in its pack, and it's allowed to have certain, ways of like being an animal, allowing it to be present and just what it is.
You know, that new theme, not to cut you off, is like the emotional support animals.
Yeah.
That's becoming a huge thing.
Yeah.
And like, what was it? Someone had an emotional support peacock or something. Like,
oh, maybe
it's getting ridiculous. Like, I don't know. Like the boundaries are kind of
getting weird.
Yeah.
And it's interesting with all the emotional support animals, and I totally understand why people have them. And it's you're kind of unburdening something else, in a way. And really, and I'm not blaming people for having emotional distress or emotional stuff coming up that's hard for them to deal with and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I get it. And ultimately, it's our responsibility, if we want to be free of it, to clear it from ourselves, because really the animal can't clear it for you. Okay? It really can't. It's just like someone else can't clear your distortion for you. Right? You have to choose to release to be aware of your own distortion, to be accountable for it, and then to release it. Right? And of course I help with all of that, just in terms of releasing it from frequency level. But it's your responsibility if you want to shift fundamentally, like having it be shared with someone else or burdening another being, whether it's a person or an animal, doesn't clear you of it. It doesn't free you of it.
Right.
It just makes it a little bit less bearable
You're
for
kind of
you.
not taking responsibility.
You're not taking responsibility. So it makes it more bearable in a way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it go away because fundamentally you haven't addressed the issue, which is the distortion, which is causing those thoughts, emotions, et cetera, that experience, that reality. Once you release those and have the accountability to, so when I say release those, I mean, if you do the work, the frequency work to release it, and then have the accountability on the physical, mental, emotional level to confirm the removal, that's when things can shift.
Yeah.
And that's when you fundamentally change and you'll start to feel lighter and clearer and brighter. And then you don't need the animal or the person to support you because you're clearing yourself.
Yes.
So that's the most important thing.
And I think there's a difference between like pets by nature typically tend to be therapeutic. Like, you know, and they have therapeutic, I know someone who has these miniature horses she brings to like nursing homes or kids. Like that's sweet. There's like an event and you bring them and it's lovely. Yeah. But like to have the animal, emotional support animal, like constantly everywhere you go, I was distinguishing that. Yeah. Like of course pets are therapeutic.
Yeah.
For an event here and there to have at your house, but like sometimes it gets a little too much.
Yeah, because like I said, that's an unburdening at that point.
Right, right.
And the thing about why are pets therapeutic? Like why do people love pets so much?
They're in the present.
Because exactly, because they're in the present moment.
Yeah.
And when they're in the present moment, they allow you to come into their field of the present moment. The more they take on your stuff, the less able they are able to be in that present moment. That's why they get kind of neurotic. If you notice, like there are dogs who like go completely bananas because they're kind of neurotic, just like their owners. So the thing is, the wonderful thing about frequency work is that pets love frequency work, by the way. Okay. It's really fascinating. So I have a lot of clients with pets because, you know, a lot of people have pets these days. And so as soon as we start frequency work, their animals will come from all different corners of the house and just sit to be in the field of it. Because they like it. It helps them. It feels light and clear. And it's like, it's very in the present moment. I can clear animals of different things, you know, their owners' distortions, their physical stuff. You know, they're just beings. Everything is a frequency package. So you can work with frequencies. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's an animal, a human, a disembodied being, it doesn't matter, right? They're all frequency packages. So with animals, I can help clear them too. And sometimes because they have taken on the distortion of the humans, they're not in the present moment, which is very, 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 very disconcerting for the animal. Okay,
because that's their nature.
It's their nature.
State. Yeah,
their
natural
state. Yeah, so they don't like being pulled out of the present, right? And it's really hard to. You have to actually, there has to be a lot of distortion there for the animal to come out of that present moment. So it's not great for them. And it's not very often that happens, but it can. Yeah. And so it's helpful to have them cleared. And like I said, if you are, the wonderful thing about animals or nature just in general, it's like I said, it brings you into that present moment. And so you can just be with that animal, right? And pet it and play with it and whatever, and it'll pull you into that present moment. Just like a little baby will do the same thing, you know? It's the same. Like, why do we all love babies? Well, they're cute, first of all, but also they don't have the same time distortion we do. They're just present, they just are. Yeah. So we want to be in that field because it feels good to us. Yeah.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of answered this. Are there GFCs that can help them? The one after this will help.
Yeah. So the GFC after this, so the group frequency calibration after this, will help to clear your pets. So if they have some of your stuff, it'll help to clear the pets. And also what I'll do is I'll help people come into the present moment that animals are in all the time because that feels good to us. Okay, just it's our nature. We are part animal. That's our nature. We're part animal because we're embodied, right? So we're mammals just like them. And so we all like to be in the present moment. It feels good to us. So that's what we'll do in the GFC.
Perfect.
So, so if you play GFCs, you'll find your pets like them.
Great. So this one in particular, you can just play it aloud while your pet is around.
Yeah.
It will affect them. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Are there some animals that might process human distortions more than others, like cats, dogs, rabbits? Is there some, like dogs, I think you said a little bit more.
Dogs will more. It depends on how strong the distortion is, and it depends how much the person is pushing the distortion into the animal.
Right.
Cats are interesting. Cats are more willful, and they are more aware of their space. And they're not as much like, dogs are more in service to humans in a weird way.
Sure, yeah.
Cats are like, okay, honey, I'm not having any of that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that's yours.
A little more boundaries, independence. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A lot more like staked in their space.
Yeah.
Right, and fair enough.
Yeah.
You know, why would they take it on?
Right.
So they're a little bit different than dogs. They're better able to hold their space. and as a result, don't take on as
But
much
then
of
you
human
have
stuff.
those cats that are kind of more dog-like. So maybe those
Yes.
in particular.
Yep.
Right? You
They
know,
can be.
You
Yeah.
have those cats that act almost
like dogs. Yep.
That they want to be in service to you. They're not as independent. It's rarer, but you know,
they still have them.
They're
And
around.
cats, some cats, man, it's fascinating. I've met some cats. I'm like, oh, okay. So this being looks like a cat, but it's actually a being, like a higher level being, and they've come in the form of a cat. And I've seen that with the horses and stuff like that too. It's a higher level being, and these cats are like weirdly like knowing, you know. They have an ability to shift the reality around them. And they have certain ability. It's very interesting. Some cats are very fascinating. They can do certain things, and not all cats are like this, but some are, and they are fascinating creatures from that perspective. Yeah. So,
cool.
Yeah.
The pet world.
Yeah, the pet world.
Okay, this question says, not necessarily pets, but horses are intuitive or can communicate with humans with just the mind. How does this happen, and is it specific to them?
Oh, I see. So she's asking about animals generally.
Okay. Yeah.
So so what that question? I'm just going to rephrase that question.
Yeah.
So are there animals that communicate communicate telepathically, and are they special? I think is like the question.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's just answer it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my interpretation of your question.
That was a weird question. Yeah.
So okay. So yeah, there are certain creatures that are very telepathic and special. So horses are definitely one, and all of you horse people know this, right? Horse people are like, I mean, it's a thing.
Yeah,
and it's a deep thing. Mm-hmm. And horses, like dogs, have a very special relationship with humans. And horses are very special. They can be higher level beings, especially the ones with big hearts. Kind of like there's a very Seabiscuit was a very famous racing horse, and he had an enormous heart, like a larger than normal heart. And there are horses that have larger than normal hearts.
You mean like physically?
Yeah, physically larger, fill up their whole chest cavity.
Oh, okay.
And are often called medicine horses. And I've visited some of them, and those beings are very, very special. They are able to clear distortion. They are able to clear energy around people. They are, because they hold the present moment so strongly, when they see distortion in us, it's like they want to bring us into their pack, but we lower the vibration of their pack. So what they do is they clear us in order for us to be in the same herd, in a healthy herd. So what they'll do is they'll literally, like Chris and I have been to see medicine horses up in British Columbia and Victoria with this very special woman by the name of Tia Barnes, if you ever get to see her 13 Moon Ranch. And she has very special horses there, and she works with kids who have disabilities who are, and stuff like that, and they start to change a lot. She works with people, and these horses hold the present moment so strongly. Like the entire time we were there, I didn't have a thought. Like literally, I didn't think.
Wow.
It was just like nothing, because they were holding that present moment so, and they did all this work on Chris and I, opening different centers and pulling us into and literally, one of those horses, and you may or may not believe this, and that's fine, but literally showed me the grids behind the reality. He pulled me right into it so I could see it. He's like, this is what's real. And I'm like, whoa.
Like Matrix.
It was like Matrix. He's like, this is what it is. He's like, and then it was amazing because he would, we worked with 3 females and 1 male horse. And I can't remember which horse it is, I'm sorry, right now. But it was interesting because we are all one. So as soon as I'm not used to horses. I never grew up with horses, and they're very big. So horses are large, and
scary.
It's a little scary if you're not used to horses, and I'm not. So anyway, he was trying to do something with me, but I was a little frightened because he was so big. And so what happened? So Tina said to him, "Do it another way. Find another way." And so she literally will translate between the horse and you. She's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, no, because she's part of that herd. So she telepathically is communicating with them. She's incredible. And so what he did was he worked on her. And I could feel it I could see it because he was showing me the grid, how working on her affected me and then affected him. I could see it in the field.
What?
And I was like, wow, what a gift. Like he was like, it is one. He was showing me over and over, it is one, it is one. But he was kept showing it to me, as to make it like much more visceral. He was an incredible teacher. And so horses are very special. And these beings are from a very specific star system. These particular horses that she's working with. And not all horses are. Okay, I'm not saying every horse on the planet it's a star being. Okay, so please don't say that I'm saying that, because I'm not. However, some special horses are elevated beings, and they take on the form of a horse to do the work that they want to do.
Wow.
So horses are very special. You can communicate. So it's not like the horses communicate with their minds. I just want to make this very clear. Animals don't communicate with their minds. They communicate through their heart. And they speak in the language of the one. So when you are disembodied, we don't talk. It's not like when we're disembodied on different dimensional orders, we don't hang out for tea and chit chat like this. We telepathically communicate. So meaning like I have a feeling and a sense of what I want to communicate to you, and I just show it to you, and you receive it, and you're like, okay, and then you respond, right? And so we have this, but it's not like we're talking to each other. We just know.
That's like a 3D
It's a
thing.
very 3D, lower consciousness thing. It's very inaccurate. There can be all kinds of misunderstandings.
Yep, languages,
right?
Tonation,
all that stuff.
Projections,
all that stuff, right? All right, so we normally, normally meaning not when we're embodied, but at a higher level order, we don't talk, we telepathically communicate. Horses and dolphins and whales, things, right? The language is of the heart, meaning that's how we telepathically communicate. So if you're in your heart space and not in your head, okay? So meaning, what does that mean? In the present moment. You're not thinking, right? That's what that horse was doing with me. He wasn't talking to me. He wasn't like, Karen, this is the one. Notice the grid structure. He wasn't saying anything. He was like pulling me right in that moment, and then he was showing it to me, meaning he was communicating it to me, so I had my experience of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's how they communicate. It's not like they're thinking.
Yeah.
It's way beyond thought.
Wow.
Okay? And it's super fast, and it's very complete. So when you get to communicate with animals in this way that are a higher level order, and it's telepathic like this, like I said, it's not a conversation about like where they like to pee. They don't care. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a higher level sharing of knowledge and experience. And that's how they communicate with each other, especially when the herd is clear, And they'll work on each other. If one is having something going on, they'll like do things to manage the energy of the others that are weaker, so they can come up and join the herd at a higher order. It's fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah, dolphins will do the same thing. So
I was curious about whales and
dolphins, also beings of a higher level order, they communicate telepathically. So if you think, so please know, they're not thinking anything. It's way higher order than that. So it's through the heart space. So that's what I said. You have to be in the present moment. You have to be of a high enough resonance. You can't want anything from them. If you want something from them, that's attachment. That's from the head. Do you know? That's very human. Like, I want something from you. I want an outcome. I want a communication. I want to be shown something. Do you know what I mean? That's very will-oriented, and it's very sort of grabby, actually, right? Because it's attached. Like, I want something from you. But if you're holding your space in the present moment, it's just in your beingness. Now two beings can come together and communicate in a way that there's no grabbing, right? There's just a sharing of whatever needs to be shared in that moment.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so different animals are different.
Yeah.
And so it's remarkable to be in the presence of them. It's really, truly a gift. Yeah.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people didn't even know that exists.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this person's asking, are there consequences to killing animals on spirit level? Does the intention matter? For example, killing for food, for survival versus sport, versus euthanizing for compassionate death reasons? These are good questions.
Yeah. So there's no consequence to the animal, how it dies. Okay, so whether it gets shot by a hunter for sport, whether it's eaten by another animal, whether it dies of an old age, it doesn't matter, because animals are in the present moment. So when they die, they dissolve back, they're of the earth, so they just dissolve into that earth frequency. Okay, that's just what happens with them. The consequence of all the BS, basically, that we just talked about, is to the human, okay? Because we're abusing them. We're not being, honestly, we're not being responsible. And we are the ones who are taking in the distortion of what we're perpetuating. So it's not on the animal, it's more to us. So And as we rise in consciousness and as we become more aware of our oneness, part of the things that will shift is how we treat our animals, you know? So because we realize how they are influences us very directly, whether we're eating them or not, right? So the consequence is not to the animal, it's to us, for sure.
Okay, that's a good distinction.
Yeah.
And then the last question is maybe a whole big topic, but do we as humans incarnate as other animals?
We can. So there are some humans who do incarnate as animals, and there are also higher level beings that incarnate
like
as
you were
animals,
saying.
right? Like certain cats. I've met certain cats because of, you know, people bring their pets online onto sessions and stuff sometimes.
Oh, sure.
When they're passing away or just because they're having an issue or whatnot. And I'll tap into a cat and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is not a cat. I mean, I know it looks like a cat, but it's not. It's a higher level being. So some beings choose to incarnate as animals because they, to be honest, the mind and the distortion we have with time is heavy. So they don't necessarily want to experience that level of distortion.
Sure.
They want to come in and a lot of beings want to come in and help. Sometimes, and they'll take on the animal form because they don't want to deal with the distortion of being human. Honestly, it's a lot.
But they still want to be in the earth plane.
They want to be in the earth plane. They want to experience things. They want to help humanity in a certain way, whatever it is they want to do. So they choose that form. Okay. Some humans will incarnate as animals. Not often, but it can happen. Yes. So humans can choose that. And it's interesting because, you know, we've mentioned this before, but as you rise in consciousness, the point is, if you awaken before you pass away physically, so before you die physically, if you awaken, even if it's a second before, or even if it's years before, it doesn't really matter. When you die, you have choice. Okay? You have choice because you understand who you are as infinite indestructible consciousness. That means you have choice as to what you do next. Okay? You can move into the infinite field of pure source energy. You can be on the other side, helping as the being that you are. You can incarnate if you want to, and you get to choose your incarnation as opposed to you don't, because you're just running all your distortion patterns and you get spit into another lifetime where you're meant to resolve them.
Oh, you're saying that's another option if you aren't awakened.
If you are awake, you get to choose your incarnation.
If you're not, you get rolled into
exactly. If you're not awake, you get pushed into an incarnation not of your choice, one that mirrors your distortion at this current time. Okay, that tends to be how incarnation works. So some beings, some people will choose to come in as animals, but you don't have to. So it's sort of like, it kind of depends. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of depends, yeah.
Kind of depends.
If you have that choice or
yeah,
not.
if you have that choice or not. If you want to choose that, yeah. But most people don't come back as animals. They move up in order, meaning they'll tend to come back as humans, just to make that clear.
Yeah, and not that an animal is lower per se, because they're always in the present moment, but lower in terms of no mind.
Yeah, so their consciousness is different.
Okay.
They don't have the same opportunity to rise in consciousness because they don't have a mind in the same way, right? They can't project their consciousness in the same way that we can. So therefore, the level of their personal upward momentum is different. Okay, so if you are a person, okay, if you're a seeker type, okay, and you want to move up in your resonance level, typically you'll reincarnate as a human. Okay, because you need that sort of package of mind consciousness to be able to move up in
and then to realize that your brilliance and all the things.
And that you are infinite indestructible consciousness. So the beings that I said who come back in as animals tend to choose it. And they choose it for a lifetime. Does that make sense? So a cat lives, I don't know how many lives. I mean, how many years, whatever years it is, right? So they'll come in for that. But the being itself, when the animal body dies, they don't usually reincarnate. You know what I mean? They'll go back to they just have an experience on Earth. It's kind of like a vacation, right? You're like, oh, I'm gonna go to, I don't know, wherever, Fiji for the week. Great. But for them, it's like they happen to come into Earth as a cat or whatever it is they come in as. Make sense?
Interesting.
Yeah, or sometimes they're birds. It's kind of interesting. But in any case, they'll choose that, but it tends to be for shorter periods of time. I haven't seen, I have not yet, and I'm not saying it's not possible, but I have not yet met a pet where it's been the same being that's reincarnated over and over and over again as an animal. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, I haven't, no, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying I haven't met them yet. So, yeah.
Yep. We might have to have a whole episode on reincarnation.
Probably.
It's very interesting.
It is totally interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Karen. This was really helpful.
In that GFC, I'm going to help pull everyone into that present moment that animals and pets experience, which we also really like, so that you can come into that expansive present moment. So be sure to tune in to the GFC associated with this. And if you like these podcasts, please subscribe by clicking on the red subscribe link below. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.